Hello and good day. So, renting versus owning a home. Today I want to talk about the details between between renting versus owning a home, and I want to clarify the way I see house ownership and where that falls into financial freedom. So to start with, the goal is to achieve financial freedom. Financial freedom is the ability to live the level of lifestyle you want without having to section off part of your time to do something you don't want to do, such as working full-time or part-time working in a position that you don't want to work, doing something that you don't want to do to make a profit, to be able to cover your living expenses, to cover your luxury expenses. So the goal is to cover your needs, cover your wants without having to do and serve in a way that you don't want to do. So when it comes to renting, you are paying somebody who owns a house. They own a property. They own a shelter for you to live in. You are paying them to use it. Now they have to deal with the costs of repairs, maintenance, property tax, which is part of maintenance, but anyway, and if they happen to have a mortgage on it, or if the value and risk of having it be used by somebody else, by not selling it and by not using it themselves. But the idea is they have a product, they have a value, they're providing a value, and you will return and give them rent. Now that rent goes purely to them. They have the risk, or they have most of the risk, and therefore the gain goes to them. Now this means this is a great opportunity for not having to take out debt, not having to go buy something you can't afford, and still having shelter and not having to live, say, with your parents or whatever situation you have. Give me a moment. Alright, so how about owning a home or buying a home? First off, the home, a property, is a very large expense. Usually something that takes several years to build up the amount to actually outright buy it, which means meanwhile you're going to have to live somewhere else, which could just mean renting for several years before you go and buy. Otherwise, people go with mortgages, which means a bank will offer you money to let you buy a specific object, which is the house, because they expect you to pay them back and give them extra for saving you that time. So by going into debt, you can purchase a house, but the problem with this is you can also purchase a house that you can't afford. So a quick notice is I recommend that at a 15-year fixed rate loan, the monthly cost is no more than 25% of your take-home pay. Now, it's important to be 15 years, not 30 year. 30 year with the rest of the variables being the same, will pretty much give you twice the value of the house, or twice as much house. Now that is going to most likely get you stuck in a problem or situation. And also don't get a 30-year planning to pay at 15 years. Something is probably going to come up. Now the idea is 15-year and then fixed rate. The ratio, so that the interest rate doesn't explode on you and cause you to suddenly have a payment that you can't afford, because it suddenly went from 3% to 10%. And honestly, the interest rate for the houses are so low nowadays, where do you think it's going to go? They're not going to start paying you. I'm pretty sure they're not. But the likelihood is eventually, if it doesn't stay still, it's going to go up. So being on a variable loan is a bad idea. You should be on a fixed rate if you happen to have a loan. Now, of course, less than 25%, so you don't of your take-home pay, so you don't end up being house poor. The idea being that if you have too much of your paycheck or income being taken away to pay for your house, then you are not going to be able to afford anything else. By the time you pay all the bills, you're not going to have enough to put away to do anything else. And especially if an emergency comes, but therefore you will not be able to build up your investments, your emergency fund. You're not going to be able to build these up very quickly. And then you're stuck in a multi-year long loan that you can't really deal with. Broke people buying a house is a nightmare, but owning the house in completeness with having a financial health and security to deal with it is a blessing. So the point is, if you're going to buy with debt, the risk should be greatly reduced, and going above that is taking more risk on and risking quite a lot, since it's one of the biggest assets once you own it that you're going to purchase. Now, the value in owning a home is the demand for homes are generally increased, since the population increased faster than the amount of homes tend to be built. So the value of the homes tend to go up because the demand goes up. And in addition, with the whole issue of, again, debt and how easy it is to go in debt, people are buying homes they can't afford, so why not jack the price up? Because people are buying. You want to make a profit, so increase the price. Or at least people are willing to pay more, so why wouldn't you accept more? So the idea is the prices for homes in land that the homes are on, which is one of the key things, but they are going up. And the actual maintenance cost is generally less than rent. Although the maintenance costs, you have to be careful of maintenance costs, because if you're just talking about mortgage and rent comparing, the cheapest day you're buying the house is usually, to use a quote here from Dave Ramsey, or not exact, but pretty close, is that one of the cheapest days that you buy the house is the day you sign the papers. Because once you buy it, you have all kinds of maintenance you have to deal with. So you're not directly comparing the fact that rent is relatively risk-free versus a mortgage is high risk, or at least much higher risk. So the idea is that the houses tend to go up in value, the maintenance tends to be less if you don't have a mortgage included in that, and the actually owning a home greatly reduces the risk of you being homeless. It greatly reduces the risk of something bad happening. You are in danger. So in addition to being a pretty valuable asset, although you're not going to be using it for your investment, but it's still nice to have a valuable item if you want to ever switch up or want to change or go down, whatever your situation may be. Having more value tends to be good. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean renting is bad, but I think to sum it up, you rent until you can buy, and you usually only do this when you plan to be in the house for many, many years. And usually you want to buy and actually own the house, or at least have a significant security and be able to buy a large portion of the house before you use debt. But I consider debt a thief and would prefer to just save and rent and then outright buy, even if technically the mathematics say that might be slightly more expensive considering the interest rates. With actual risk involved, it is usually not a good idea. In a matter that you can just save for a few years. It's going to take you a few years to pay. Why not save for a few years? So the main thing is the cost of owning a home is greatly increased if you, to reword that, if you are renting to save to buy a home, that's a pretty good path. If you're renting and never plan on buying a home, that can cause you trouble because one of your greatest financial expenses is your home, your rent, your mortgage. So by completely owning the home, you are greatly reducing your minimum living expense. Therefore, eventually you want to buy a home that you plan to live in for a long time, for multiple years, preferably more than 2, but at the very least more than 2 years, because otherwise you're just going to have to finagle and try to get rid of it, and that can actually cost you money. And before the value can actually has time to go up all the way, or more than the 3% or 6% here and there, because of the fees involved in trading and selling such an object, and getting the proper people to do so, and doing it in a short amount of time. Now, hopefully this helps you guys to understand that renting is not bad, but eventually you have the goal of owning, therefore reducing the risk and reducing the risk involved of something bad happening and you losing your home. After all 100% of foreclosures occur on homes with mortgages. So, hopefully this helps you guys. By renting until you can buy the house is what I would recommend. And there are I suggested a few other ideas, or one other idea, and with some limitations to reduce the risk if you choose to go with debt. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave a comment down below. And if you'd like to hear more content like this, feel free to subscribe, and have a good day.